Imagine being 400 feet underwater. You just watched your friend be dragged into the depths and torn apart by two giant sharks. And now you realize that you're running out of air. I'm Shelby.
And I'm Casey.
And this is Chill Seeker.
Well, that painted a very vivid image. That sounds like my worst nightmare. And
I know.
I've been dying to know how this story ends. Like last week, I have to tell you that I had a nightmare about sharks. And I just need to know how this guy gets out of this situation because this is insane.
So today we have part 2, the final part of this harrowing shark attack survival story. If you haven't listened to part 1, go listen right now because this won't make sense. You're cutting right into the middle, so go listen to that and come back to this one. We'll start with a maritime idiom that speaks to the bravery of the men in this true horror story. Until you have the courage to lose sight of the shore, you will not know the terror of being forever lost at sea. Okay, let's go. Okay, so we left off with Brett alone and drowning in pressure, hundreds of feet deep in the ocean after he just watched his friend be eaten alive by sharks. And this was in 1972. He had no equipment or training for this, and there was no precedent for surviving an ascent from this depth. But Brett just kicked up towards the surface, towards the faint shimmer of light that seemed impossibly far away. He kicked upwards with everything he had. His vision tunneled into a narrow, collapsing circle. Red haze closed in. He sucked on the regulator and caught a tiny sliver of air, just enough to push him up a few feet more. And then the world faded and he passed out. But somehow, by sheer brutal luck, the tiny bit of air he'd inflated into his buoyancy vest expanded just in time.
Wow.
So he rose. When Brett broke the surface, his head snapped out of the water. The rush of low pressure forced him to exhale violently, and the reflex triggered his lungs to pull in a breath of air. Somehow, he was alive.
Wow.
Barely. He thrashed towards shore, knowing how close he was to survival, blind, dizzy, with his legs giving out as the bend sets in. Meanwhile, a couple on their honeymoon was strolling on the beach, waiting in the shallows and laughing, until suddenly they see a man stumble from the water. Half crawling, dragging himself through the surf, Brett Gilliam made it out onto the sand. He was soaking wet and actually convulsing. Through gasping breaths, he told the couple, "I'm a professional diver. I have decompression sickness. That's my truck right there. The keys are on the front left tire. On the dashboard is a clipboard. It has the medevac instructions. Please just follow them." And then he passed out.
Wow. I'm so glad there were people there. Oh my goodness.
I know. And not just any people. In a stroke of impossible luck, the woman was an emergency room nurse and the husband was a doctor.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
That's divine. That is
And not only
crazy.
that, they were also from Florida and they worked in Florida where scuba diving is common. So they were familiar with scuba diving injuries.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
That's just it feels divine. That's crazy.
I know. It does. Yeah. So they knew exactly what decompression sickness was and what had to happen next. They ran and dug the keys from beneath the front tire of Brett's truck, climbed inside, grabbed the clipboard, and just as Brett had said, taped to the dashboard were step-by-step emergency instructions for how to initiate a diving medevac protocol. They followed them to the letter. They sprinted across the road to a small inn and called a Marine lab. The lab called the Navy. The Navy activated an emergency response. A team threw together a medevac flight to extract Brett from the island. But there was no hyperbaric chamber in St. Croix in 1972. And that was a problem. a big one. So, a hyperbaric chamber is essentially a pressurized room where patients can breathe pure oxygen at a high air pressure. For a diver suffering from decompression sickness, aka the bends, the only thing that can force nitrogen out of the bloodstream and tissues and stop them from doing catastrophic damage is this chamber. Without the pressure, those bubbles expand, causing nerve damage, paralysis, or death. Brett needed a chamber now. And the closest one was across the sea, at the Roosevelt Roads Naval Station in Puerto Rico. Brett was losing consciousness as they loaded him onto a military aircraft with a doctor on board, Dr. Horace Norrell, who, in a strange twist of fate, had been one of Brett's diving students.
Oh,
Which is
wow.
weird, right? Yeah, just super random. So the plane lifted off, heading for Roosevelt Roads, but mid-flight, disaster struck.
No.
Yeah, as if we needed more disaster, right?
Oh my God.
They got word that there were already 2 divers in the chamber and it was full. They could not take Brett. So they rerouted, now aiming for a different chamber at the northwest tip of Puerto Rico, another 200 miles away. As they flew, Brett lay on a stretcher hooked up to an oxygen tank. And then the oxygen suddenly ran out.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah. So his breathing slowed. His body started to shut down. Dr. Nurl turned to the pilot and told him that Brett was going to die without more oxygen immediately. The pilot didn't hesitate. He radioed ahead to the police in San Juan and they shut down traffic across the 4-lane highway, turning it into an airstrip.
Wow.
Yeah, and the plane landed on the highway. As its wheels screeched against the pavement, a Coast Guard helicopter descended from the sky, coordinated in real time, waiting at the edge of the road. They didn't waste a second. They opened the plane's side hatch, and a Coast Guard team ran up with a stretcher. Brett was barely conscious. The team hauled Brett from the aircraft and immediately hooked him back up to a fresh oxygen tank. Then they loaded him into the chopper and lifted off again, still trying to get to the chamber in time. The helicopter roared through the night sky. It was a race against time and every second counted. When they finally landed, a medical team was right there and they moved quickly, getting Brett straight into the chamber. Brett spent 2 days inside that chamber. The treatment was brutal. Multiple rounds of recompression protocols. The nitrogen bubbles had damaged his nerves, his vision, and his hearing. But he was alive. And no one knew. Back on St. Croix, his teammate Robbie McIlvaine had made it to the surface alone. The last thing he'd seen were the sharks dragging Brett and Rod over the edge of the cliff.
Oh, wow.
He assumed, like anyone would, that they were both dead, right? So he gets up and he reports that back to his superiors. And now, 2 full days had passed. And this was 1972. There were no cell phones or protocols for notifying civilians of something like this. So, when Monday rolled around and Brett finally emerged from that chamber, there still had been no word back to the island that he was alive or had been rescued at all.
Wow.
Yeah. He was given a pair of jeans, a borrowed polo shirt, and some sandals. The Navy arranged a flight to take him back to St. Croix. It wasn't dramatic, just Brett alone on a small transport plane. He landed at the island's small airstrip on Monday. No one was there waiting. He didn't have his wallet, he didn't have a plan, and he didn't even have cab fare. But he saw a cab driver that he thought he recognized and asked if this cab driver could just take him to his dad's place and then he would pay him back once he got there. The cab driver agreed. So they drove in silence along the winding coastal road that hugged St. Croix's west shore. The sun was low in the sky now, painting everything in a warm, hazy gold. The streets were quiet. But just as they passed the bend before Frederickstead, the car slowed. Outside, they saw a crowd. Right next to a large beachside venue, there were people just milling about, talking outside in the street. Hundreds of people with cars filling the parking lot. And Brett told the driver to stop because he recognized some of those people, some people that he worked with or knew on the island. He said that he would find someone to cover the cab fare. So he stepped out of the cab and wandered into the venue. But as he did, conversations froze. One woman dropped her drink, another gasped. Everyone stared. And that's when it slowly dawned on him as he looked around. He had stumbled into his own memorial service.
Oh
yes.
My God!
Isn't that crazy?
Can you imagine that?
No, truly.
Oh my God. I cannot even imagine what it would have been like to be his loved one thinking that he's dead, and then here he is. Like, I would be like, wait, is this real or is it a ghost?
Yeah, no, truly. Like, that's just something you would have to think that it wasn't real. I would think I was losing my mind. Crazy. So there was screaming, there was cheering. People rushed him. Friends who had been grieving were now hugging him so hard he could barely stand. The DJ, stunned, turned the music back on and changed it. Someone got Brett a drink. Others kept crying. And in a matter of minutes, his memorial service turned into a rager. In the days that followed, the physical toll of the dive truly revealed itself. Though Brett had survived the bends and the deepest free ascent in diving history, he didn't escape unscathed. He had lost feeling in his fingers and toes. He had been a guitar player, a musician, and of course, that ended.
Aww.
His hearing was permanently damaged. He lost about 25% of his range, both high and low. His vision deteriorated. His right eye was actually legally blind. But he adapted. He endured. And he went back to diving, like literally the next day.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
No. Brett, why? Why?
I know. Like, why do people do that? I swear to God, I would never get in the water again.
It will never make sense to me. Like, I remember I was really close friends with this guy who was in a motorcycle accident and he lost his leg. And he told me, like, I will never go on a motorcycle again. But he said that anytime he's at a bar, like, another guy who's, like, super into motorcycles will come up to him and be like, oh, like, don't worry, man, you'll get back on one. Like, thinking that he wants that. And he's like, no, like, absolutely not. Like, I'm never going to get back on one. Like, why would I want to get back on the thing that made me lose my leg? But
I mean, some people do. Look at the famous girl who lost her arm to a shark attack. I think her name is Bethany something. And she like started surfing immediately after like it healed and she could. So people are different. And I guess that's just the kind of guy Brett was. Like, he was not going to let this stop him. His, diving was his passion. And I guess it was worth the risk. So got right back in the water. PTSD is not a thing for Brett, I guess.
Wow. That part. Like, how does he not have PTSD that would prevent him from doing that again?
Right?
Like,
I would be like panicking about I'd see like a shadow in the water and be like, shark. Like, I don't even know. I already do that, like.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Like, I was in a shooting almost 8 years ago, and whenever I hear a loud noise, I still get startled. Like.
Which we really need to do an episode on that whenever you're feeling up to it, because I would love to hear that full story. Okay.
Oh, we should.
All right, guys, stay tuned for that.
Yeah, we should do the episode before the 8-year anniversary, which will be on October 1st.
When is the anniversary? October?
Mm-hmm, October 1st.
Let's release it on the anniversary.
Let's do it.
Okay, that's our plan. Okay, all right, guys, you heard it here. We're going to release that. Okay, so anyway, in the years after, the attack became legend. It was written up in different magazines, and the BBC even did a documentary about it in the 90s. In every retelling, no one could make it more intense than the truth already was. But even after everything, one thing just didn't quite make sense. Why were the sharks there in the first place? Oceanic whitetips are deep sea predators, open ocean hunters. They're not supposed to be just a few hundred feet from the shoreline. And yet, that morning they were. Later, when Brett pieced the timeline together, a chilling possibility emerged. Just offshore, a few miles from the drop zone, U.S. Navy vessels were running exercises. Specifically, sonar testing. They were pumping low-frequency sound into the ocean. These frequencies travel far, and there's a theory among marine scientists, and it's one Brett came to believe, that sonar can summon predators.
Wow.
Sharks, especially oceanic whitetips, are especially sensitive to vibration. Their electrosensory system that lets them feel movement, hear frequencies, and sense prey from miles away can detect even the slightest disruption. Some researchers believe sonar pulse imitate the vibrations of a dying animal, the kind of signal that trips a shark's most primal instincts.
Wow.
Yeah. And that day, maybe Brett and his team were the first thing those instincts locked onto.
Well, I believe that was probably what it was.
I mean, it certainly could have been. We'll never know for sure, but it is very strange that white tips would be in that area.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, this is one of the wildest survival stories you will ever hear. But we have to remember that not everyone made it out. Rod Temple didn't survive. He was experienced and he was just doing his job when the ocean turned on him. And even in his final moments with his body failing, Rod had the clarity of mind and the conscience to shake his head, to tell Bret, go, live, leave me and save yourself. His body was never recovered, but his memory lived on with Bret, with all of his loved ones and the people he worked with. He died doing something he loved. And even in his last breath, he tried to protect someone else. May Rod Temple rest in peace.
That is so awful. I'm just glad that Bret was there to be there, and
so he wasn't entirely alone.
Yeah, so he didn't die alone and had his coworker / friend with him.
Yeah,
to ease that final awful.
It's truly unimaginable, like what he went through. It's absolutely unimaginable to me. It's just so, it's like worse than any horror movie I've ever seen. It's awful.
Yeah, I truly cannot imagine.
So, as we know, his story ended that day, but Bret's didn't. And Bret didn't just survive. He refused to stop. He went on to shape the diving world, co-founding diving organizations, writing over 70 books, and logging nearly 19,000 dives.
Wow.
Yeah. In 1993, 21 years after the attack, he shattered the world record for deepest air dive at 475 feet. That's deeper than the Statue of Liberty is tall. And he did it because limits were meant to be tested, especially by someone who had already come back from the dead. But on October 8th of 2023, Bret's story finally came to a close. He died of a stroke at age 72. So rest in peace to Bret as well. And thank you for showing us what it means to fight for every breath. All right, now I want to hear from you, Casey, and our listeners. Would you rather be attacked by an animal on land like a tiger or a bear, or by a shark in the water?
Oh.
Also, what insane animal attack story should I cover next? If you know of any, drop them in the comments. But Casey, tell us.
Oh man, I mean, I would rather not get attacked at all.
Yeah, but if you were gonna get attacked,
on land for sure.
You gotta choose.
Because
on land for sure.
Yeah, because I cannot hold my breath underwater. Like, I'm for sure a goner if it happens in water. If it happens on land, I'm probably still a goner. But I think I'm pretty good at climbing, so I might be able to like climb a tree. But they probably could too.
Okay.
Yeah, they're, you know.
Oh my God.
I don't even know, but I feel like land would be the way to go for sure. What about you,
I would
Shelby?
choose land as well. Yeah. For sure land. For sure land. Yeah. I mean, I say that, but I also know some absolutely insane like bear attack stories that are so awful. So we'll definitely be covering some of those, and also mountain lion attack stories, like some right in my backyard in Washington. There have been mountain lion attacks that are so scary where people barely got out alive and sometimes didn't. So yeah, we'll definitely be covering some of those, but if anyone has any requests, I'd love to hear them. I'm happy to take some input on this and cover something that, you know, you guys want to hear about. So thank you for listening. And please, if you like this episode, subscribe to our channel on YouTube and tell us on patreon.com/chillseeker and social media @chillseekerpod on TikTok. Please also hit that like button and make our day, and leave us 5 stars if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We love making these episodes, and it means so much to us when you let us know that you liked them. All right. Stay safe and stay out of the ocean. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. After listening to this episode, I feel like some of us will be thinking twice before diving back in. All right. We'll see you next time on Chill Seeker. Bye.
Bye.